but first I would like to introduce you the colleagues Jan and Michiel. So they are at the start of Kate. They helped us with the POC, with the proof of concept. So it's just normal that they are here to share their insights with us on the digital systems of the future. So thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm a real estate advisor and I can help you find a new property. What can I do for you?
Hello, I want to buy a house.
Great. Where do you want to buy a house?
I want to live closer to work in a neighborhood where my kids can go to school by bike or bus.
I'm afraid I didn't quite get that. Where do you want to buy a house?
For example, in Zaventem, near Brussels Airport.
I'm afraid I cannot find any houses in Zaventem right now. Where do you want to live?
Maybe Schaarbeek in Brussels.
Okay, great. How much are you willing to spend?
I think I can borrow 400,000 euros, but I'm not sure.
Super. I will look for houses in Schaerbeek with a budget of 400,000 euros. Do you want a newly built house, a recently renovated house, or a house to renovate?
I don't really care.
I'm afraid I didn't quite understand. Do you want a newly built house, a recently renovated house, or a house to renovate?
If possible, I want a newly built house.
Sorry, I couldn't find any newly built houses with a price of 400,000 euros in Schaerbeek. Here are some other options in Schaerbeek.
Conversations with virtual assistants can get really frustrating, and I think everyone here probably recognizes this example. And to be fair, this isn't always the virtual assistant's fault. I mean, after all, when we call into a company, we call in because we have some sort of a problem and we're frustrated to begin with. But more often than not, the virtual assistant will not be able to respond and deal with the problem. And it seems as though it feels somewhat difficult to connect to a robot in a human-like fashion. And as commercial virtual assistants become an integrated part in almost every smart device that we use, whether it is smartphones or watches or TVs, etc., there's a pressing question that we need to address here, I think. Because for all the promises of the fact that virtual assistants have these human-like traits, how come it's still so very difficult for us to connect with them? In 2017, which is light years ago in the world of technology, the research firm Gartner came out with its annual hype cycle. And so in that year, in 2017, they identified virtual assistants as the next big thing. And so they predicted that within 5 to 10 years, we would reach a plateau of productivity when it comes to virtual assistants, which is exactly the era that we live in today. And so if these are the golden years of virtual assistants, I think it's really an appropriate question to ask ourselves, why are we still not able to really connect with virtual assistants? And so a lot of universities and research institutes, they do research and they study how people perceive commercial digital assistants and how we establish meaningful interactions with human beings. And based on their reporting, we know that most human beings don't consider a virtual assistant actually as a playfellow, you know, like a partner, an acquaintance, an assistant. And so it's clear from these results that people are not ready yet to emotionally connect with virtual assistants. So are we witnessing a pipe dream here? Because weren't we supposed to have a deep, deep craving about having deep emotional relationships with virtual assistants? Yeah. And so there is indeed no shortage of TV shows and videos and documentaries and films about, you know, projections of conceptions of the future relationship of human versus machine. I mean, the movie Her, a lonely man becomes so emotionally attached to his virtual assistant that he even falls in love with her. And this is such a gripping story because it's the idea of connection with a machine that really, really interests us. And so, but for now, we don't consider virtual assistants as our friends just yet. And so it's worth noting that there seems to be a chasm between our perception of intelligence of virtual assistants and the actual capabilities of virtual assistants. I mean, because most virtual assistants are really unable to navigate what transpires over a series of simple questions and answers. So could we be dropping out because of these, you know, kind of false expectations? And this suggestion is made very clear when we analyze the usage of virtual assistants today. Most people use their VAs for a variety of reasons and find a variety of features very interesting. But we also see that people use their virtual assistant for things, I mean, that require picking up a phone, going to an application and typing a command. In other words, they mostly use their virtual assistant as a replacement for physical labor. I mean, do things on your behalf. Simple, directive tasks like asking for weather. And this, for me, reveals the biggest paradox between human-to-human conversations and human-to-machine conversations, because asking for weather might be one of the most popular pickup lines in any random human-to-human conversation. It might be the most human thing to do, actually, to ask for the weather if you talk to your neighbor or to a friend. And yet, a virtual assistant seems unable to navigate over that simple question, how about the weather? I mean, think about it. If I would picture three old men on a bench in a park, I picture them having a conversation about the weather. I mean, this is what people do. We talk about the weather. Yet the difference in conversational flow between this type of conversation and a conversation with a virtual assistant could not be starker. And so the key differentiator here, the difference here is that we as human beings, we're not programmed to talk in binary facts. We don't hold fact sheets to answer simple questions about the weather. I mean, if someone might ask me, hey, what's the weather going to be? I might say something like, it's a perfect day to ride my bike, or stuff like that. I mean, and this kind of second-degree reading of a conversation, this requires context. And language is remarkably nuanced and adaptable. It's very hard to contain. It can be literal, it can be figurative, it can be flowery, it can be plain. And so that versatility makes our language one of the most interesting and powerful tools humanity has, but it's one of the most difficult puzzles for a computer to solve. It's the context, it's the reading in between the lines that is incredibly hard for computers to solve. And so, if there's no context to help machines form the setting of a dialogue, then how is an actual conversation possible?
Now, let us break down what we mean by this using the example of our real estate virtual assistant. Let us analyze the previous conversation. Let's analyze it and see what really went wrong. First, the VA asks a narrow focus question. For example, where do you want to buy a house? The expectation from the user here is that the assistant has human-like conversational capabilities. The user can reply in their own words. They can give a description of a place. For example, in a neighborhood where my kids can go to school by bike or bus. This is what we call a second-degree answer. It's not an exact city, it's not an exact location, but it's a description of a location. Now, this is not what the virtual assistant really expected. The virtual assistant expects a specific parameter, and it will match this parameter with a predefined knowledge base to give a response. But in this case, there is no hard parameter. There is no city or location. So the virtual assistant is unable to match the answer with the pre-scripted parameter. So what happens? The virtual assistant says something like, sorry, I didn't understand, and it repeats the same question. Now, at this point, the user knows they should adapt to this dumb kind of chatbot. They know they should give an exact location. But this is not what they really want to do because they might not know the exact location yet. So maybe a little bit frustrated, they adapt and they say something, something like perhaps in Zaventem. Now the virtual assistant recognizes a hard parameter and it can query the database and give results. Now, it's very important to note that the virtual assistant needs a hard specific parameter to query the database with structured information. The problem is, in this case, there is no result, so the virtual assistant repeats the same question. As you can see, we're just going around in circles again and again.
And this exemplifies, above all, that human beings don't think in hard parameters. I mean, especially not within the context of buying a house or getting financial advice or getting health insurances. These are things that cannot be expressed in binary digits. I mean, it's very, very hard for human beings. And so the precondition, we believe, in developing valuable, meaningful interactions between robots and humans, between digital assistants and humans, is to allow humans to converse in a natural, human-like, multi-layered fashion. And the key here is to derive context from what they're saying, not to find exact keywords, but to really try to understand the context. So let us break down what we mean by this by using the same example again. So let's pick up the tedious conversation we just saw earlier, and that conversation started with a narrow focus question by the virtual assistant: where do you want to buy a house? So let's try to change the course of the dialogue here and let the virtual assistant ask an open-ended question, something that humans can deal with perfectly, like, what is the reason for your purchase? And so this allows the user to form the setting of the dialogue and actually give the context to the virtual assistant he needs in order to personalize the answer. And the expectation here remains the same. The user will still expect the virtual assistant to have some sort of a conversational, human-like capability, and so all is fine. And he will respond with, I want to live and work in a neighborhood where my kids can go to school because I think that is important for me, and I don't know which location that implies. So far, so good. But here the expectation will shift because as a user will expect the virtual assistant to actually interpret this answer, the virtual assistant here will actually try to rely on connected intelligent systems to interpret the answer. Will not do it himself. He will try to search an answer in a collection, a suite of technologies at his disposal. And this is where the magic begins. Traditional chatbots are built on logic, rules, and try to deliver answers based on keywords that it can match in a predefined script. So if they receive a request that is not fed into their system, they will not be able to respond. And so while an intelligent virtual assistant, like Kate, for example, is trying to build on natural language processing and response. So a question is responded using multiple technologies, including machine learning, deep learning, predictive analytics, to offer a contextual response. And so this type of virtual assistant focuses on the history of the user, the transactions, prior discussions. It will not look at keywords, but try to analyze the semantic meaning of a user sentence. It will try to compare itineraries between school and work using services like Waze or Google Maps. And it will try to look at similarities between other user profiles similar than yours to try to find the best possible recommendation of a location. And this suite of technologies will take away the responsibility from the user. Let's not let the user give hard parameters, but at the same time, it will try to take away responsibility from the chatbot. And this is what really differentiates Kate from a lot of the frustrating, crappy virtual assistants that we know in our daily lives. And this process of organizing and analyzing all relevant data points that can be conveyed into a clear story and actionable takeaways, this is the gold. I mean, make no mistake, this collection of systems, this is not built out of thin air. This requires focus, determination, a great team of data scientists, conversational analysts, designers, etc., etc. It requires all those investments that are not visible for the user, but make all the difference between a virtual assistant that is basic and a really good personalized virtual assistant.
So maybe to come to a conclusion, what is the difference between a chatbot and an intelligent personal assistant? This is a chatbot. It's a piece of software that is capable of having automated conversations with a human. And that's the only thing it can do. And many times, as we saw before, it's just going in circles. It's not really able to assist you, and it's not really able to help you getting things done. This is an intelligent personal assistant. It's a suite of technologies that allow chatbots to have more natural and more sophisticated conversations with users. It feels more personal and it feels more intelligent. And it relies on separate intelligent systems, all trained in a custom and a specific domain. And also, this is the vision of Kate. It's a personal assistant that is backed up by a whole suite of intelligent systems. And also, what we saw from Know Me right before is basically the same story there. Now, the question is, how do you turn your chatbot into an intelligent personal assistant? Well, first of all, take away responsibility from the users. Don't expect them to reply with hard parameters and don't expect them to adapt. Instead, allow users to converse more naturally in their own language, in their own way of communicating. And to be able to do this, the virtual assistant should rely on separate intelligent systems to derive hard parameters from second-degree information. And finally, provide personalized results from any relational database. Now, let's take a look at the resulting real estate personal assistant.
Hello, I'm a real estate advisor and I can help you find a new property. What can I do for you?
Hello, I want to buy a house.
Great. What is the reason for your purchase?
I want to live closer to work in a neighborhood where my kids can go to school by bike or bus.
Great. I'll keep that in mind. Can you give me some info about your financial state?
I have a wage of 3,000 euros per month. My wife earns 3,300 euros. We have around 100,000 euros saved on our bank account. Okay, so now we have great. According to your financial state, I estimate that you have a budget of 500,000 euros to spend. Do you want to do some renovations? And I say something like, I'm not too handy.
Great. According to your financial state, I estimate that you have a budget of 500,000 euros to spend. Do you want to do some renovations? No problem. Describe for me your ideal house.
For me, the house should have a modern look and feel on the inside. I would like to have at least a small garden.
I found an ideal house for you. It's in Brussels, with an excellent connection to your work. There are very good schools in the neighborhood. It's only 350,000 euros. I estimate that with your financial state you will have plenty of budget left to spend on renovations by experts. The house therefore has very good value for money.
Well, the idea of connecting emotionally to a machine is something that we always been fascinated to. It's not the conception of consciousness that is key here. It's not about building an emotionally conscious machine. It's about the real value of virtual assistant is about assisting people in getting things done and deriving context from an abstract second degree human information is key in just doing that. And this is exactly what Kate is aiming to do, is aiming to do, and how KBC is gearing up for the future of personalized AI advice. Thank you. We are Raccoons. I'm Jan. This is Michiel.
So thank you, Jan and Michiel, for these insights. I think indeed it's clear that if we want to mature to our level 5, this is exactly what we need to do.
Yes,
so thanks for sharing this. We will certainly take this along. So now I would like to connect again with Peter. Peter, thanks for still being there. So you listened to the story of Raccoon and of Raccoons and Jan and Michiel. What are your first reflections?
Well, as anyone in Toronto would tell you, raccoons are very intelligent. We have many of them here. They really are. I can send you some videos of some of the clever things they can do. Look, it's really interesting. That was a great case study. Firstly, congratulations around the house buying purchase. Those sorts of open, ambiguous questions and answers and natural language dialogues are very difficult to wrestle down. And if Kate can present and control customer interactions that way, I think you're onto something really quite significant. You know, that is a level of chatbot that I haven't seen in banking to date.
Okay, and the other way around, what did you think of the story of Nomi?
I think there are a lot of correlations between the story of Nomi and the story that we brought, because Nomi is basically the same thing. It's a set of intelligent systems. It's a suite of intelligent systems that all work together to provide a service, one unique service to the customer. And that was the point of our presentation as well. So I think there were a lot of interesting correlations between the two keynotes.
Yeah, because indeed, we talk about technology, but it actually all starts from the customer needs and how customer acts. So that links us back to what Johan was saying with the quote of Steve Jobs. It's not about technology, it's about what customer wants. So that's indeed also a red line we see. The interesting thing, Peter, what I think about Nomi is also the success metrics you actually have, like the dwelling time. How do you go along with that one in Royal Bank of Canada?
Yeah, dwell time's something which it's a term that's used a lot in traditional retail. So if you go to Hudson Bay here, or it's Hudson Bay in Amsterdam, close to you, they will talk a lot about dwell time in traditional browsing and looking. And it was something we decided we thought we'd measure. We didn't know how this would quite work out. But dwell time and stickiness seem to work well together. Of course, it has to be positive dwell time. You can't have negative friction, making things difficult for customers that are spending time in the app trying to find their way through. That would have a very opposite reaction. So shifting from sort of 3 minutes to 8 minutes dwell time, and the time that allows, it is an incredible privilege for us. And as I mentioned during the video, it also directly correlates. It's almost like a formula that we've figured out that the amount of dwell time equals to the amount of increase in NPS and customer satisfaction. It equals to the reduction in attrition. And it also increases the propensity to both recommend RBC to other people and also the propensity to open more accounts and And so the more you engage and the more dwell time you get, the more likelihood that when you do give an offer or a nudge around, would you like to think about its investment season, which happens here once a year around tax time? Would you like to be thinking about these sorts of investments, or would you like to connect to a financial planner, whether it's human or digital, that you have a much more high propensity of taking up additional products. Now, the thing that's interesting about that is we didn't push that at the very start, but the dwell time, as that builds up, that happens naturally, the propensity to buy, which is really interesting.
And your story and dwell time, how do you think?
But I was thinking something different, meaning that the dwell time for me correlates with the idea that consumers are more ready today to accept AI-driven solutions and customer experience. I think for the past decade we have been talking about AI a lot, and I mean, it's only now that we start to see real valuable AI-driven experiences, and people are actually willing to buy into it. At the same time, I also think that, and that's what you see in the dwelling time as well, I think, a bit. But at the same time, there's also a realization for a lot of companies that investing in AI is very, very, very hard. It takes a lot of investment. It takes a lot of commitment to actually build those things. And I think both Peter and KBC, both Kate and Nomi, can actually relate to this, I think. I mean, I think Kate is built by and maintained by 100-man squad on a daily basis. I mean, that tells you everything, I think, what you need to know in terms of what it takes to deliver this. And so I think, yeah, there's a really interesting thing going on, both on the customer side, a willingness to be open towards AI experiences, but also a realization that it takes a lot of effort on the company side to build this.
Indeed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think your comment's right around the acceptance has increased dramatically in how consumers are willing to adopt AI. And I'll go as far as to say, just to build on your point, because it's a very good one, is that they now trust the artificial intelligence nudges and insights and conversations that they have with Nomi and I'm sure with Kate. And that builds over time. And that trust is at least as equal to human interactions in my experience. So if you're being told something about your money, it's going to be right.
Yeah, and I think you shared some social media posts where people were expressing to leave their current bank and go towards yours bank. I think, and this also speaks to the same point, and I think we will see that with Kate as well, that people will actually seek for this, more valuable banking experience. Yeah.
Indeed. So I would like to thank you all, especially also Peter, giving the early hour also. You think you will probably are facing a long day ahead, so please do enjoy, and thank you a lot for joining us on our Group Inspiration Day.
No, thank you for having me today. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Okay. And also,
Thank you.
And also, thank you to Jan and Michiel for being there at the early hours of Kate, and also for being here now and giving us insights into what we need to do more. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.